Hey everybody, it's hwsteele, and today is September 14th, 2020. Now, first off, I want to apologize for my voice. If it comes off as a little bit rough, it's because of this past weekend. We had a birthday party over here, and at one point I was grilling, some fat fell onto the fire, and it got really smoky for a few minutes there, and that really affected my voice. I almost lost my voice because of that. If I had been really smart, I would have just let the stuff burn and got out of the smoke. But I cared too much about that precious steak. Ugh, I love steak. Anyway, that's beside the point. So, anyway, I'm apologizing if my voice comes off as rough during some of this video. Another thing is I'm recording this video much earlier in the day than I normally do, and as a result, I might be tripping over my words a little bit here because I'm not completely awake yet just because it's still early for me. So, hopefully I don't sound like I'm just babbling on like I am right now. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get to the subject matter of this video. And the subject matter of this video is W.D. Gann's 1923 book, The Truth of the Stock Tape, which this is a PDF of right here. You can find PDFs very easily online, so just do a search. If you don't already have a copy of it, you should be able to find it someplace quite easily. If you have the book itself, that's awesome for reading through, and I recommend that you read through this book. Just read the surface level of this book a couple of times, at least once, but a couple of times is good, because it has a lot of really good information in it, actually. Now, a lot of the stuff, like talking about the ticker tape and things of that nature, we don't experience that anymore because we don't have a ticker machine. We just have our computers to give us all that information, but I'm pretty sure that the majority of you are smart enough to make translations in that area, since this book is almost 100 years old now. We'll find a few things that are not technology that we use now. But anyway, read through the book, and then once you've done that, start digging into the book if you really want to find some hidden information, because trust me, it is there. And the way you would dig into the book is just like you would dig into Tunnel Through the Air. The difference is that this book is 4 years older, that's all. Believe it or not, the information that's in Tunnel Through the Air is also in this book, but from a different frame of reference, okay? W.D. Gann hid information in all of his written works. And I mean, even the 1909 Ticker and Investment Digest article is chocked full of hidden information, which is one of the main reasons why I think that Gann actually just wrote that entire article. If he didn't write the entire article, then everyone who is involved with the article knows what Gann knows. So I don't know if that's actually true or not. So that's something to ponder there, but that's beyond the scope of this particular video. I want to talk a little bit about Truth of the Stock Tape and dig into it a little bit like I would if this were Tunnel Through the Air, to give you some examples of things and to show you that we actually have some very similar ideas coming out of this book right from the very beginning of it as are in Tunnel Through the Air. So one of the first things we'd want to do is look at the title here, Truth of the Stock Tape. There's 5 words in the title. If you find the numerological value of the title, it works out to 80, which is an important number. This is, well, it's a copy of the dust jacket here, so you can do things like find the numerological value of things. Notice that this is written by William D. Gann as opposed to W.D. Gann. Also, count the words, count the number of sentences, count the number of paragraphs, all that kind of stuff like you would do in Tunnel, you'd want to do here. But one thing we want to pay close attention to are things like we have a number that shows up right here. There's 22 charts in this book. Plainly, let's see, it says it is it is fully illustrated with 22 charts showing plainly the successful method of trading. So obviously on the surface that's nothing important, but the reality is the number 22 is very important to Gann and his methods, and there are reasons for it, and he's telling you the number 22 is important right here. Just like in Tunnel Through the Air, you could find the number 22 right in the foreword of the book by the fact that there were 484 words in the foreword of Tunnel Through the Air, which is the square of 22. So we're getting the same number here right in the beginning of the book. Now, another thing that shows up that is very important is the fact that he's showing you right here that this book, Truth of the Stock Tape, is 4 books under one cover. Okay? And then he lists the books and their names. So, of course, we're going to want to numerologically figure things out here. And if you do that, you'll eventually come to the conclusion that the total numerological value is 8 times the numerological value of the title, Truth of the Stock Tape, which is 80. So 8 times 80, that's probably important some way. Not probably, it is. I'll just tell you it straight up is. So those are the kind of things you're going to want to look at. You want to find numbers. You want to find the numerological numbers, and then you want to manipulate those numbers in ways that make logical sense to you at the time. And you want to be able to find confirmation of that in this book. In other words, the number 22 shows up here, but we need to make sure that it's important, and we need to find it somewhere else also some way. It might show up numerologically, it might show up as a number of paragraphs or sentences or things like that. And when it does, the surface level information that we see is a hint towards how to use what's being talked to, or shown to us, I should say. So it says, it is fully illustrated with 22 charts showing plainly the successful method of trading. So 22 is associated with that, charts and the successful method of trading. We've got the 4 books right here showing a division of quarters of the whole, really. And this is actually a nod toward the Ezekiel airship idea. That's all I'm going to say about that. There's a picture of W.D. Gann at approximately 44, 45 years old, right there. Truth of the Stock Tape. This particular copy came from the Gann study group. There's a dedication here. And then in this book, we have a preface, not a foreword, as it's more of an instructional type book and not a novel like Tunnel Through the Air was. So what do we want to do with the preface? Answer is we want to do exactly the same thing we did with the foreword of Tunnel Through the Air. How many words are here? How many paragraphs are here? What's the subject matter? So read through, obviously on the surface level, read through it, and then start counting things. Start finding the numerological value of things. You're given a date here. So if we go through, we see that in the actual preface, there's a quote, which is something that we'd want to pay close attention to. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. 8 paragraphs if you include the quote. There's a date here. That's something you want to pay attention to. You'd want to look at the number of words in the Bible quote that's in there, that kind of thing. Another thing you would obviously want to do is I already mentioned the number of words in the foreword of Tunnel Through the Air was a square of 22. Well, the number of words in this preface is 514. But you'll notice that some of these words are hyphenated, right? So if you count the hyphenated words, like salesman, instead of being one word, if you count it as 2 words, you're going to get 520. So we have 2 numbers here, 360 divided by 7 is 514, rounded. In other words, it's indicating 1/7 of the circle, whereas 52 is indicating, sorry, I had to scratch my head there. 52 is indicating the number of weeks in the year. So we have right here in the preface of Tunnel Through the Air a hint towards the 51 and 52 that we have, that by now anyone who's watched a lot of my videos knows exists in the 1909 Ticker and Investment Digest article. And we know that it is in the Tunnel Through the Air right on the first page in a couple of instances. So Gann's showing us the same thing here that he showed us in the other places, or actually he's showing us the same thing here that he showed us in the 1909 Ticker and Investment Digest article. It hadn't been shown to us yet in Tunnel Through the Air, obviously. Let's see. We have the date of the forward here. The kind of things we'd want to do with the date of the forward are calculate the difference between two dates here. We could do 6/6/1878. That's Gann's birthday. With 1/27/1923. When he wrote the foreword, he was 44 years, 7 months, and 3 weeks old. Is that important? Could be. You need to work with that number. How many orbits of planets fit into there? How many seasons is that? How many this and that? Test it out. See if it is important. See what 2 times that is. See what half of that is. All kinds of things like that need to be figured out. Another thing that you should be doing is looking at specific permanent dates. And to say permanent dates isn't completely accurate, but dates used by, how should I say it? Well, I'll just say it like this. Like, for instance, seasonal dates on Earth. We consider those permanent dates. The start of spring, the start of summer, start of fall, those will always happen on the same day of the year, within a day or two, because of the way our calendar system works with leap years. Excuse me. So, same point in time, the same thing happens, right? But the whole reason that we're counting those points of the year as important is because of what the declination of the Earth is. So seasonal dates are really completely dependent upon the maximum, the minimum, and zero declination of the Earth. So the Earth isn't the only planet, so we can think of the latitude and longitude of other planets and things of that nature as permanent dates for the most part. Okay, so that's something to think about. And that's something that you should always think about. Let me put a little more emphasis on that. So if we do something like look at January 27th, 1923, and then look at March 20th, 1923, we see that there are 52 days between those two dates. So Gann's reiterating 52 here. There's 514 words in here, which is 1/7. There's 520 words in there if you count the hyphenated words as 2 words. The date here, January 27th, is 52 days from the first day of spring. Okay, so Gann's putting this information here, and he's reiterating it in different ways. So that's an example of finding it one place. Actually, we found these two numbers very close together, and then having a second, the number in there a second time, or the piece of information in it a second time. And it's going to be some place that it's either important for it to be in these two places if it's far apart in the book, the actual confirmation of something. If it's far apart in the book, it's far apart because you need to pay attention to the things that are in those parts of the book. But if they're close together, you'll find a lot of stuff very close together like this where there's a confirmation of something that's important. So if you find something that you think is important, put it make a note of it saying, I think such and such is important on page number, so that if you are able to find confirmation, you can confirm the importance of that. And then you can look at what's around you to try and determine how Gann was using that. And the more background information you have on Gann's works, in other words, the more books of his that you've read, courses, articles, all those things that you've read and then studied, the more confirmation you find between the different written works, the more easily it's going to be able to be found in the future. So the more you've learned, the faster you'll be able to learn more, is basically what I'm saying. So, but that's not the only way to play with this date there, although this date probably is very much, this date was probably picked because it was 52 days before the first day of spring. I mean, we could do another thing where we do 12, 21, 1922, and then do January 27, 1923, and find that there's 37 days between those two dates. Okay, so different ways to look at it, different ways to split things up. Let's see. I have my list here. I should just leave my pen open because I keep clicking it shut and it keeps picking up in the microphone. All right, so let's go to page 1 in the book. And this is just a list of all the chapters in the different books in quotes within the one book. Quote here, and then we have page 1 right here. Truth of the Stock Take, book 1, preparation for trading. He has a quote here. No man can learn what he has not I am so sorry, I'm having trouble this morning. No man can learn what he has not Let's try this one more time, and let me wake up a little bit more. I'm going to take a drink of my caffeine here. All right, let's try this again. See, normally I edit all this kind of stuff out, but I'm not going to do that for this video. I think I'm going to do more videos where I'm just straight up natural, no edits. Okay, no man can learn what he has not preparation for learning. However near to his eyes is the object. In other words, if you're not ready to learn something, if you don't have the journey, if you haven't taken the journey to get to the point you need to be to see what's right in front of you, then you're not going to be able to see it. A chemist may tell his most precious secrets to a carpenter, and he shall be never the wiser. The secrets he would not utter to a chemist for an estate. So basically, Gann is just telling you here, if you're not ready to learn something, then you won't be able to see it. So that's why people like me do things like this instead of just saying, hey, this is how it is. Number one, that would be a disservice to all the people who spent years and decades learning this stuff, and a worse service to the people who were supposed to be learning it. Because if you learn a piece of information that you're not ready to learn, it can have bad effects on your life. Very bad effects. And the worst of all would be that you don't value that information because it was just handed to you instead of you're having to earn it. And so many people just don't understand that. It surprises me, but it's true. So in other words, work for it. If you're not willing to work, you're not going to be able to get where you want to be. Anyway, enough preaching. So it says, in 1917, when the United States was forced to enter the war against Germany, we heard on every hand we are unprepared for war. Wilson's period of watchful waiting, instead of preparing for the inevitable, had at last brought us face to face with war without being ready. So this very first paragraph in this book right here is telling us something that's in tunnel. First off, in tunnel through the air, the United States was not ready for the war that came. And then we have this in quotes right here, watchful waiting. That is something that's important. Now, it sounds like that's a negative thing right there, but it's not. Gann's pointing out something to you that he actually pointed out in Tunnel Through the Air. If you look at his campaign in cotton and his campaign in major motors, the first thing he did when he expected something to happen was watch and wait and watch what happened. In other words, if he had a forecast, he didn't just jump in at some point. He watched to make sure that things were happening like he was expecting them to happen. He even described that in the beginning of the War of Tunnel. And not only that, but this has another meaning besides that you'll figure out when you're ready for it. Lawyers, doctors, engineers, and professional men who make a success spend anywhere from 2 to 5 years' time studying and preparing to practice their profession before they begin making money. You should read that again. That is extraordinarily important. That doesn't mean it means on the surface that you have to spend time to get ready. You have to learn, and that's important. But that's not what Gann's trying to convey to you right here in a hidden level, so to speak. He's telling you something so important with how he works his cycles, how he deals with them. Okay? I can't tell you how important this second paragraph of the book is. Men enter into speculation in Wall Street without any preparation. They have made no study of it whatsoever. They try to deal in something they know nothing about. Is it any wonder that they lose? Speculators and investors who simply guess, follow tips, rumors, newspaper talk, and so-called inside information, it's in quotes, it's important, have no chance of ever making a success unless they follow some well-defined plan based on science, 1, and supply, 2, and demand, 3. They are sure to lose. Okay? Over 20 years of study and experience places me in a position to give you a definite practical set of rules and instructions which will lead to success if you follow them. No great success or gain can be expected unless a man is willing to study and learn by past experience. You cannot get something good for nothing and must pay with time, money, or knowledge for success. Read that a few times. All right. Let me look really quickly. Now, some of the things you're going to want to do are look at things like how many times this word is in the book, how many times this word is in the book, how many times this phrase is in the book, how many times this phrase is in the book. Okay? I'm sure you've probably figured this kind of stuff out by now because I keep reiterating it in the videos, but you need to study in that manner to find what's in here. All right. Let me look. Now, let's go to Chapter 2. Chapter 2, can money be made in Wall Street? ? Or can the stock market be beaten? Look at that. It kind of looks like the title of Tunnel Through the Air, doesn't it? Title. You have often heard the expression 99 out of every 100 who go into Wall Street lose. The 1 man out of 100 must win. Or it says, then 1 man out of 100 must win. Therefore, my answer is that Wall Street can be beaten and that you can make money by speculating and investing along conservative lines and by trading in a few stocks, selected stocks. But how are you going to do it? You must have knowledge and science. No. Look at that. 3 times more than the other fellow or common trader. Find out how successful men in Wall Street have made their fortunes. Then go and do likewise. Remember that knowledge is power. Look at that. It's in quotes. Statistics show that 98% of businessmen fail sooner or later. Then why do men go into business? ? Because 2% of them make fortunes out of general business and keep them. So we've got 99 up here and the 98 down here. Just ask yourself the question, who gets all the money that is lost in Wall Street? It does not evaporate. For every dollar lost, someone makes a dollar. Think about that. Surface level makes a lot of sense, and it's true, but there's something else being pointed out there. Then the way to make it is to trade the same way that the fellow does who gets what you lose. In other words, if you're losing the money, you're doing something wrong, right? Find that guy who's doing it right. Remember that every time you buy, someone sells, and every time you sell, someone buys. Opposite ends of the spectrum. The majority of people who buy stocks lose money in the end. Why? Because they guess, follow newspaper dope, fake tips, or inside information. They do not make safe investments. They gamble on 10 or 15 points margin. They nearly always buy near the top, and of course, nothing can keep them from losing. They gamble on a 10 or 15 points of margin. Changing the page, turning the page in my notebook there. The general public do not sell stocks short, therefore they are always wrong in a bear market. When a man loses money buying stocks and refuses to sell short, he can always look back and say, if I had only sold when I bought, look how much profit I would have made. Then why don't you learn to sell short? In another chapter, I will show you the proof that it is safe and practical to sell short. Because a lot of people, even today, a lot of people don't realize that you can make money when the market goes down. I remember 20 years ago or so when I got into trading, that was even fewer people knew about the fact that you could short the market. And back in Gann's day, even fewer people knew that you could short the market. And it was kind of looked at as a negative because when you short the market, you're actually borrowing stocks. So it was thought of as not as good as just buying. Plus, it's thought of as a negative. In other words, because the value is going down, it's a negative thing. But that's not true. It's the opposite of the value going up. Anyway, let's go on here. At the present time, there are over 700 stocks listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And if you group them under their proper headings, there will be over 20 different groups. It's probably important to look at those numbers more closely. If you study the action of all the stocks in one group and watch them on the tape, you will find it is too much for you and that you cannot make money trading in all of the stocks in any one group, much less by trying to trade in several groups. Gann's giving you, in this second paragraph on this page, an important lesson. Tape reading requires patience and the essence and value of its concentration. There is no such thing as a man being born with a mind that can concentrate on 10 things at one time, much less 700. Then success depends upon selecting a few stocks and concentrating upon them. Very wise words there. Very important underlying idea. Okay. Let's see. I have an idea. Let's go to page 49. Well, I was going to say something about this right here, but we'll just go to page 49. I skipped a little section here. Maybe I'll do it in another video. Page 39, so it's off by 10. There we go. 49. Page 49 in the book. Do you think page 49 in this book might be important? I think it might be important. Okay, here's page 49. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs on this page. Now, I'm not going to read through all of them, but I will read this very last paragraph. It says, some people never learn by experience. This man has been trading ever since before the Civil War, and in over 50 years has not learned that abnormal markets where prices advance over 50 to 100 points in a few months occur only 3 4 times in a lifetime. He is expecting things to happen every year, which experience should have taught him are not likely to happen more than once in 20 years. So that's something that's very important. Let me go back to page 6 here. I want to read something to you here. For example, United States Steel has 5 million shares of common stock, and it requires a very large volume of sales to move the stock up or down very much. General Motors has 50 million shares of common stock, and its fluctuations are confined to a very narrow range because the buying or selling of 100,000 shares will not move it more than a point, if that much, while the buying of 100,000 shares of Baldwin will often move it up or down 5 or 10 points because there are only 200,000 shares of Baldwin outstanding and seldom over 100,000 shares of stock floating in the street.